There are many, many aspects of responding. Some of you may have seen the stories. I've been privileged in the last year or so to co-chair an international commission on what we called inclusive prosperity with Ed Balls, that brought a variety of thinkers and doers from the United States to Europe together to think on these problems. One of the first things we saw was that there are no grounds for fatalism, that there are countries, Canada stands out, Australia stands out, that actually have produced steady increases in middle-income family income over the last 15 or 20 years, living in this same environment of globalization and technology. What are some of the crucial elements of success? Let me highlight three. First, a commitment to the active use of macroeconomic policy to assure an adequate level of demand. That means that when private investment falls short and there are substantial needs for public investment in infrastructure and other things, those investments need to be forthcoming. As I put it in the United States, if a moment when we can borrow money for 1.7%, 1.7% for 10 years in a currency we print ourselves, and a moment when male non-employment is near record highs, is not the moment to fix Kennedy Airport, I don't know when that moment will ever come. And, you know, there's some terminals at Heathrow, guys, that, like, are nothing to write home about. Some of that's infrastructure investment. Some of that is simply maintaining effective basic government functioning. Some of that is monetary policies that have as their focus keeping us away from deflation and keeping us moving forward and doing our best to spur private investment. Nowhere is this agenda more important than in continental Europe. Several times in the last century, in the 1920s, in the 1930s, in the mid-1950s, your country and my country joined with others to relieve German debt. The decision to relieve German debt was not made because of a judgment that there had been no sin involved as that debt was incurred. The judgment was made instead that it was better to look forward than to look backward, to avoid rather than to create resentment, to establish an order in which all felt, regardless of what had happened in the past, that they had a chance to flourish and define their greatness. And I would say that as one contemplates the situation of the European periphery, caught with deflationary forces, with a lack chronic lack of demand with rising non-employment and growing resentment that a similarly generous spirit needs to inform judgments on the handling of debt, the creation of liquidity, and the common pursuit of a stronger European infrastructure. Strong macroeconomic policies that assure adequate demand as a first requisite. A second requisite, an economic environment in which progressive taxation and effective regulation are possible. I do not believe in a politics of envy. As far as I'm concerned, if more resources go to the fortunate and they do not come at the expense of anyone else, that is a good thing. As I regularly remind some of my more populist friends in the United States, if we had 50 more people like Steve Jobs in our country, there would be more inequality, but we would be a better country with more opportunity, and it would be a very good thing. And so to frame these issues simply in terms of tearing down one group is, I think, very wrong. At the same time, I would say to you that we will not sustain an integrated global economy if that integrated global economy exists only for the benefit of those who have the capacity to be mobile. If the idea is that capital can move across borders, money can move across borders, the most successful entrepreneurs can move across borders, so we really have to have a zero tax rate on all of that in order to keep them. But working people really aren't going to move across international borders, so it's okay to jack up their taxes. If that is the defining tax philosophy on which the world operates, it is not going to work. Nor is it going to work if in areas ranging from financial regulation to environmental regulation, the dominant philosophy is, let's everybody try to cut their regulation as much as possible so we can attract the business. That won't work either. And so we need an international economic system that is based on openness, but that couples that openness with managed integration to assure that we do not have races to the bottom when it comes to taxation, when it comes to regulation, when it comes to the basic pursuit of public purpose. And I would say there's a third thing, that's the last one that I will emphasize. And this will need to find its expression in different ways in different places. And that is that we will need to find ways to assure that labor and work is not just another commodity. We've seen in my country excesses of unionism. They are probably small compared to the excesses that have existed in times and places in this country. But at a time when the share of income that is going in profits is steadily increasing, at a time when employers are increasingly able to rely on contingent part-time workers who never need to work overtime, who do not seek and do not receive any kind of pension or other income security benefit. We have to find a way forward that empowers workers and gives them a fair chance. Because if we don't, they're not going to see rising standards of living. They're not going to be confident that their children will live better lives than they did. And ultimately, that is not going to work for our democracies. I'm not in doubt that societies that can invent the smartphone, can sequence the genome, can find ways to address these issues. There are hard problems to figure out, but the root problems are not intellectual. The root problems are of finding the vision and crafting the compromises that can help all of us see that our choice is between failing apart and prospering together with a healthy middle class flourishing. Thank you very much.